All right, so let's begin seated. And for today, let's start off in Barakanasana. So bring your feet together and don't feel obligated or even compelled to bring your feet super close to your hips. Let it be a really gentle opening posture. For some peculiar reason, and I could spend probably years trying to figure this out. It's not necessary. We're oftentimes inclined to want to really get as deep as possible in this posture. And I don't think that that's necessary. And it's also not the most beneficial thing for a number of reasons. So just starting off gentle. And then from here, press down into your sits bones and take a moment and observe the alignment of the bony points of your hips, your as-is points, and the top edge of your mat. And so by that, if you could imagine drawing a line across and then see if that line is the same as the top of your mat or if it's kind of veering off to one side. Maybe if it were a directive, it would be sending you in another direction, and just start to actively feel for creating a quality of alignment with that. And I'm not a big fan of the idea of squaring the hips to the top of the mat as a cue or as a practice. However, if we have that rotation in our body, which is very, very common, then we have a tendency to either try to overcorrect that or to just sort of let that be part of what we're always sort of navigating around, and that can create overactivation in other areas. So if you can for a moment, finding just a quality of ease, and maybe that means that you shift your hips a little bit rather than letting the upper body do all the work. Maybe you just literally change where the skeleton is, and then feel for just letting your hands rest comfortably. And if things don't look symmetrical from the legs or from the hips down, don't worry about it for now. Close your eyes and begin to allow your shoulders to relax. Your hands can rest wherever they're comfortable. Let your elbows be heavy. Gently invite the back of your skull to float back and up. Begin to find awareness in your breath. As you inhale, invite your breath all the way down into the pelvis. Let your belly be soft with that inhale. Feel the back open. As you exhale, start to feel for the supportive lift of that Mulabanda. So we'll actively engage that for now. And then as you inhale, feel for releasing, softening, allowing the breath to descend all the way down that Sushumna channel, down the spine, all the way down to the tailbone. And exhaling and feeling that ascension of the respiratory diaphragm, the pelvic floor diaphragm, all of that synergy that works so seamlessly without even really thinking about it. And we'll stay here, and for today's practice, I invite you to set intention, just starting to feel for a quality of ease and a quality of letting go, and then the way that activating and releasing can be supporting elements to that. So oftentimes when we think of relaxing, we are even over efforting within the sentiment. There's that like pressure to let go or that pressure to relax. So easing back on that too, and just breathing here. And we'll spend about 3 more breaths with this intention setting. As you inhale, invite in your intention. And as you exhale, surrender and release that which does not serve your intention. Inhale. Exhale. And 1 more breath like that. Inhale. Exhale. And then just allow yourself to softly fold for a moment. And as you fold, maybe your hands walk out. But just notice the way that you can either be very, very effortful in this fold or very soft and passive. And for this opening fold, just let it be gentle. Let it be as passive as possible. So notice if you are pressing the feet into the mat, let those become softer and more relaxed. Observe if you're engaging through those hip flexors in order to fold, and allow those to become just a little bit less active. Invite a quality of heaviness into your knees and thighs, and then allow your elbows to become soft as well. You're welcome to let your neck be soft. You can let your head be heavy. We'll remain here for a few more breaths, just allowing the body to have this place of ease. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. And 1 more breath like that. Inhale. And then exhale, press into your feet. And then allow that engagement to be your support. So rather than letting the back body lift you, allow just that gentle opposition into the feet be the ascending force. From here, go ahead and grab 2 blocks. We're going to come down to a reclined posture. So this next piece will be some myofascial work for the glutes, for the connective tissue around your SI joints. This is going to be bittersweet. I think you'll really like it. If you don't, then please feel welcome to let me know. And there are ways to modify, which I will share with you. So you're going to have 2 blocks coming down onto your back. Once you're down, your blocks will come underneath your hips, and you want them framing your sacrum. So you'll have the corners of the blocks meeting each other closer in the direction of your tailbone, and then your sacrum will sit in that triangle of those blocks. So just go ahead and slide those blocks underneath your hips, and then allow your hips to rest on the blocks. And right now you're probably observing just that quality of awareness that block edge is creating along that sacral border. Making any little adjustments that you need to here. Let your arms be relaxed, palms facing up, float your feet up off the mat. And take a moment here. You might need to make some adjustments. Maybe you just shift your shoulders. Maybe you want to shift your blocks a little bit. And we'll start off with just the slightest tick-tock of the knees here. And right now you're inviting awareness into your glutes, starting to create a little bit of myofascial release. So if we want to release this over-efforting or this activation in our body that's continuously going on, we have to unload the connective tissue. We have to take that force out of the body. And so one of the ways to do that is through myofascial work, by mobilizing the connective tissue. It's one thing to ask for relaxation, and it's really unfair to ask for relaxation if that tissue can't relax, if it has that load in it, that force of energy in it, and that bound quality in the connective tissues. So just asking for less effort through this quality of myofascial work there. And then with that tick-tocking, you start to bring a little bit of a circling movement into this, and you can make this quite a bit more intense by lengthening the legs, but the modification or the less intense version would be with those knees bent. So choosing what speaks to you. And then again, creating those circles, and you should start to feel, or you probably already are feeling, kind of a warm, almost like a friction burn feeling, a little bit of a bruisey feeling. Let your elbows be soft and heavy. Let your breath be gentle and rhythmic. And then changing direction with those circles. Your feet are together for now. And then go ahead and create just some nice big circles with your legs, so you can sweep them out and around. And as you experiment with space, as you experiment with these big circles, notice what happens in the quads and the hip flexors. And if you can start to bypass that grabby, that sort of overly efforted feeling in the front of the hips, what is going to be your source of stability? What are you going to start to use? So you'll get a little bit deeper, you'll get more core support. And you'll start to feel that you're using some of those deeper postural muscles instead. And then take a moment and just sort of get creative, find opposing circles. So your legs will move in opposite directions, passing at center, maybe creating some big figure 8 shapes. And change direction. So you can just get creative with this. And if you notice a particular sensation as you move through this range of motion, be it in the hip joint or in that block contact along that sacral border, perhaps you experiment within that part of that circle. So maybe there's a circumference that elicits a little bit of a different sensation, and you start to linger there. So we'll stay here for about 6 more breaths, just playing with this movement and allowing it to be that process of discovery. You can revisit this. I like doing this just as a general self-care technique, but just kind of playing with it, noticing what's going on. This is so good. If you're spending a lot of time driving, this is going to be really nice for bringing those SI joints back into alignment, where driving tends to bring that right side forward a little bit more. And then allow your legs to extend out. Bring your feet onto the mat. Legs are long. So now you're in supported extension here, and just let their breath be gentle and passive for a moment. Feel for allowing all of that firing that may have occurred through the front of the hips to melt. So you've utilized it, which is great. And now you're just inviting it to soften a little bit more. It's not an active stretch, it's a passive release. Just breathing into that there. You're welcome to close your eyes if you'd like. Revisiting that intention of letting go. Let your toes relax. Allow your heels to be heavy. Let your knees be soft. Allow your thighs to be heavy. Inhale. Exhale. And 2 more breaths there. Inhale. Exhale. And 1 more. Inhale. Exhale. Drag your right foot back onto the mat. So that right knee will bend and you'll just gently drag that right foot up. And then allow it to rest on the mat and slowly bring that left foot up. Bringing both feet to each other. Well, not quite in contact with each other, but just bring both feet to symmetrical. Walking those feet in. Invite awareness into the ball of the foot, the center of the heel, the ball of the baby toe. Inhale. As you exhale, start to feel for grounding into those 3 points. Find your hips becoming a little bit lighter. And then lifting your hips up off of those blocks. Slide the blocks out. You'll come up toward bridge pose. Take 1 block, place it between the thighs. So you'll hold that block there in that bridge pose and then start to feel for pressing into those 3 points evenly in the feet here. Your hands can come to those as-is points, those bony points of the hip. Allow your left foot to press a little bit firmer so that left side, that left as-is point is going to lift up just a little bit higher and then switch over to the right. So we'll alternate left to right here. Firmly hold that block, left side, left, right. Switching side to side here and just alternating and noticing the sensations that occur with this. So keeping that awareness into your feet, holding onto that block firmly, starting to feel that heat and that firing into alternate sides of your pelvis, into the glutes there as well. And just notice, like, can you tease apart the sensations? So maybe you're more active on your right side, maybe you're more active on your left, and maybe you're evenly active, but it's in different areas. So perhaps you have stability and support or a lot of awareness into the hamstrings on one side, and then it's more targeted into the center of your seat on the other side. So just bring that awareness in, exploring as you alternate left to right. And then we'll find 1 more press into each foot, find a quality of stability and evenness at center. Firmly hold that block if you've eased up on it. And from here, go ahead and tuck your tailbone just a little bit and soften and untuck slightly. Squeeze that block and tuck. Soften, squeeze and tuck. Soften, squeeze and tuck. Soften 3 more times. Squeeze and tuck. Soften, squeeze and tuck. Soften, and 1 more. Squeeze and tuck. Hold. Maybe you're shaking a little. That's not bad. Slowly lower down. Upper back, mid back, low back. Really feeling that tuck in order to get that low back down. And then your hips come down. Place your block aside. Invite your feet together. Floating your feet up, drawing them toward the heart into a Supta Barakanasana. You can embrace your feet. You can bring your hands to your shins. Draw your feet toward your chest. Invite your knees to explore that open space there. If you find contact between elbows and knees, you're welcome to create that opposition. So here we're opening through the glutes, we're opening through that pelvic floor activation and through the adductors, the inner thighs that we just worked so much with that block squeeze. 2 more breaths here. Relax your shoulders, relax your throat. Inhale. Exhale. And 1 more breath like that. Inhale. And exhale, allow your feet to come down onto the mat. Your feet will be together here. So we're going to create a little bit of a butterfly. Your knees will come a little bit wider, but we're not relaxing into that Barakanasana posture quite yet. So your feet are together, knees come out just a little bit. Bring your hands to those bony points of the hips here and just take a breath. Inhale, exhale. How is the contact of your hips? How is the contact of your sacrum on the mat? How is the contact of your lower back? Go ahead and start to create an imprint of your lumbar spine. So pressing your lower back to the mat, and your hips will change the angle quite a bit. And then allow that to soften, allow the lower back to elevate. Inhale, your hips might rock forward slightly, and exhale, feeling for that posterior tilt. Inhale, extend, relax through the shoulders, keep the upper body soft. Exhale, feeling for that, tilting back just a little bit there too. And 2 more breaths like that. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale, tilt it forward. Exhale, tilt it back. And allow your knees to softly come to a neutral alignment. Your feet can step a little bit apart. So from here, just if you will, take a moment, bring your hands right to those as is, those bony points, and then allow your fingers to walk just beyond them and start to massage into those little tiny TFL muscles. So they're probably ropey feeling right there at the front of the hip. And maybe you have more sensation in one side than the other. Maybe one side is chronically a little bit tighter. Take your right ankle across your left knee and continue to work into that right side, allowing that right knee to just drop forward. So again, there's the idea of asking something to relax and release, and then there's the truth in its ability. So just letting that melt forward, letting that drop, and then seeing if that's actually accessible and attainable right now. And maybe you find that you're on the precipice of this place where it's letting go-ish, but it isn't quite able to completely let go. Notice if you are active in your ankle. Notice if you're active in your right foot. Notice if you're active in pelvic floor. So if you're kind of like clenching or overly engaging through Mulabanda, see if you're active in that right side of the seat. Let it all be very soft for a moment there. Take your right hand, place it on the inside of the right thigh. So here we went with all of that soft and subtle letting go. And now we'll actively find opposition. So you'll press the inside of the right thigh into the right palm, finding opposition. Notice what activates. And then let it melt, let it drop, let it be soft. Oppose. See if you can tune into what's engaged and soften. And then one more time, find that opposition, resist, and soften. Now take a moment here, revisit that quality of letting go. Let the ankle be soft, the knee relax, the hip be heavy. Gently begin to rock that left knee side to side. See if you can maintain that quality of ease through the right side as you passively allow it to go with this movement. So the arms and hands can be wherever they're most comfortable. The breath is gentle and rhythmic. Inhale, exhale, feeling for gravity in that right knee. So just letting that right knee get even a little bit heavier, dropping a little bit more. Inhale, exhale, and one more breath there. Inhale, and exhale. Allow that right foot to slip down. And then go ahead and place it on the mat. Switch sides. Take the left ankle across. Find that left as is point. Massage into that little TFL there. Let that left knee relax, left foot relax, left toes, left hip be heavy. And then take the left hand to the inside of the left thigh. Find opposition. Press the thigh to the hand to the thigh. And let go and soften. So I'm noticing that my body's shaking a little bit with this side. Maybe yours is, maybe it was the other side. Find that opposition and relax. And then one more time, find that opposition and soften. Begin to rock that right knee side to side. So that shaking that I'm noticing, it happens in a lot of different movements, but it's when your body can't quite determine if it wants to let go or engage. It's very similar to the shaking that occurs when we are in a really effortful, strenuous strength training movement where we're shaking kind of at the end of our set, where things get really, really tired and really quite fatigued. And we start to notice the discrepancy between those pathways. So we're kind of alternating. That's the same thing. It's that sometimes things are really good at letting go and sometimes they're not. And then so there's that negotiation. It's a very similar kind of tremor of truth, if you will. A few more rocks with that right knee, just allowing it to take that left leg through that passive experience. And then allowing that left foot to slip down onto the mat. From here, come on over through your side and then come up and find your way into tabletop position. So we're going to come right into hands and knees. Your wrists will be slightly past your shoulders. So classic alignment has shoulders stacked over the wrists. That's a lot of extension in the wrist joint. So I'm going to invite you to come back just a little bit with that and then allow those elbows to soften. Tuck your toes here. Feel for lifting up through the inner body. Imagine that you have, maybe you do, maybe you don't. Imagine that you have evenness with those hip points to the mat. So sometimes you can have one side that's dropping a little, or maybe you're a little bit short through that side of the waist. and then sometimes not. So just noticing that if you can. From there, reach your heart forward, inhale, elbows are soft. As you exhale, round, and as you round, go ahead and float those knees up just a little bit, and then notice that you can keep those hips level. So take a peek, see if that right side's dropping, if that left side is dropping. Release the knees, inhale, extend, offer up the heart. As you exhale, round, hover up and hold here, and then we'll alternate side to side. So that right side's going to tilt. You'll kind of let your hips go over to the right a little, that right knee gets a tiny bit closer to the mat, and then the left side. Alternating left to right. Keep lifting in and up through the low belly, keeping those finger pads pressing firm. 3 more times to each side here. Notice that your low back has a rounding quality to it. Imagine you're reaching your lumbar spine up to the sky, and then release those knees to the mat, untuck the toes, melt the hips back for child's pose briefly here. You're welcome to bring your brow to the mat. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, and one more breath there. Inhale. As you exhale, rise toward hero's pose with the feet under the hips. So rather than bringing those feet wide, like a classic hero's pose, you're just going to come up to a gentle supported place. Bring your hands to those bony points of the hips. Notice that they are aligned with the top edge of your mat. Make any little adjustments that you need to find that quality, and then relax through your shoulders. Feel the back of the skull floating back and up. Invite your inner body to lift. Take a few breaths there. Maybe you can massage into those hip flexors a little bit with the fingers just below those bony points of the hips. Inhale, exhale. One more breath there. Inhale, exhale. Grab both of your blocks, place them across your mat. You'll have short sides of the blocks to each other. Blocks will be right in front of your knees. And then come forward and place the thighs on those blocks. Forearms will come underneath the shoulders. Elbows under the shoulders, maybe a little bit in front of them. Palms on the mat or the floor there. And then from here, allow your hips to roll over to the right a little bit, and then roll over to the left. And just notice the quality between the thighs and the blocks, that little bit of myofascial work there. So alternating side to side, rocking those hips, rolling over those quads. And just exploring this. You'll notice some very acute feelings, and you'll notice that certain qualities have different sensations that come with them. And then go ahead and just work your way back a little on those blocks. So you kind of reverse arm crawl your way back. Now the blocks are underneath the upper thighs a little bit more, and working it side to side there. So as we breathe here, we come back to intention. And I was exploring some stuff for a class that I taught last night around just sort of the neurochemistry of emotions, the difference between anger and resentment. And I thought it was interesting. And I think there's a lot that goes into sort of echoing some of this holding that's hard to let go. So that's one of the aspects of resentment, is that it's sort of that stuffing down or that carrying around things. And one of the pieces of languaging that I observed in some of my research yesterday was the idea that when we put things in the freezer, we don't put things in the freezer to freeze them. We put them in the freezer to save them for later. And so when we are overly active in our bodies, we have a really hard time letting go. It's almost like that anticipation that you might have to move, you might have to do something, you might need that load in that tissue for later. Go ahead and work your way back just a little bit more. And as you work back this time, the block should actually make contact with the pubic bone. So we're going to come right back. So that block, or the intersection of the blocks, is going to be under the pubic bone, and then you're working side to side there. And you may find that you want to kind of lean into one side for a moment a little bit more than the other. Please feel welcomed. If you find a place that's really speaking to you, spending a little bit more time working with that, keeping those elbows pressing firmly into the mat, and just working that side to side movement. And breathing there, continuing to feel the breath. Allow the belly to relax, keeping the front of the lumbar spine lifted. So there's a big difference between supporting the spine using your core and using your outer abdominal muscles. They don't have to be part of that equation. So we can start to let the belly have a quality of ease in it rather than over efforting as well. Then go ahead and find a place where you can begin to walk your hands back and lengthen and elevate through the upper body. So we'll create this almost hybrid of seal and up dog with the blocks right underneath the hips. Draw your elbows a little bit closer to your rib cage. Allow your heart to slide forward. Feel those shoulder blades hug down the back. Your gaze can be forward here. Inhale. Exhale. One more breath like that. Inhale. Exhale. And softly come back down. Go ahead and work your way up a little bit so those blocks will be more across the mid-thigh here. Take your left elbow slightly closer to the center of your mat. So it'll just be a little bit more in than the right side. And then bend your right knee. And if it's accessible, you'll bring your right hand back, capturing that right foot, drawing that right foot down toward the outside of the hip there. Notice if the left foot floats up. Keep pressing firm through that left elbow. Keep grounding down that right foot so you are actively stretching out those right quads, the right hip flexors here on the blocks. Inhale. And as you exhale, press the top of the foot to the hand, actively engage in a pose. And then soften. Inhale. Notice that you get a little bit more range of motion, a little bit deeper. Exhale, press, engage. Inhale, softness. And one more time. Exhale, press, engage. Inhale, softness, and release. Let's switch sides. So the right side's a little bit narrower this time. Left foot floats up. Right toenails are resting on the mat there. Left hand captures the left foot, drawing that foot down toward the outside of left hip. Notice that that right shoulder is stable. It hasn't hunched up into your ear. And then go ahead and find that position. Kick the top of the foot into the hand and let it be soft for a moment. Find that resistance and soften. And one more time, resist and soften and release. From here, gently walk back, come off of those blocks, slide them aside, and melt your hips back for child's pose. Bring the forehead to the mat. Let the shoulders relax. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. One more breath there. Inhale. Press into the tops of the feet. Come on up. Find your table. Tuck your toes. Inhale, extend. And as you exhale, allow your hips to rise back and up toward downward facing dog. Alternately massage it out, pressing the heels to the earth, letting your hips move a lot with this. So down dog, sometimes we over focus on the back of the body. It can be a place where you can really start to investigate the sides of the body as well. So I like to let my hips drop out to one side and ground through the opposing heel. And just notice that lateral line on that lengthened side. And then if it feels accessible, maybe even walking those fingertips forward and deepening that quality of opening. And then switching. So now I'm letting my hips drop out to the left and pressing firm through that right heel, walking that right hand out. And then finding center. Your gaze here for a moment is going to be just observing your feet and your kneecap. So if your knees naturally roll in, you want to draw the inner thighs forward a little. If they naturally splay out, you want to spiral those inner thighs back and up toward the wall seam and ceiling behind you. But just noticing that you have that alignment of the kneecaps and the toes pointing the same place. And then walking your hands back. So you're coming into a forward fold there at the back of the mat. Invite your hands to opposite elbows, finding just a little ragdoll there. Let your neck be soft, head be heavy. You're welcome to sway side to side. Relaxing here into the breath for a moment. Where is the weight in your feet? There is a relationship between the arches and the pelvic floor. So if you naturally have really high arches, that's usually an indication that you probably have a little bit more of a concentrically loaded pelvic floor or like an over clenching in the body in that particular area. And if you have flatter feet, that may be more of a eccentrically loaded or locked long quality. So it doesn't necessarily mean that things are weak or strong. It just means that that's kind of the resting state
that translates into the structure of the body. So we start to affect that by becoming aware of our feet. And one of the most important parts of that is just noticing that you have that evenness of weight between the ball of the foot, the center of the heel, and the ball of the baby toe. So starting to let that create the foundation. Soften your knees here for a moment. You're grabbing your toes into the mat a little. Inhale. And then as you exhale, press into those 3 points of the feet. Allow that to lift you up, coming all the way up to standing. Your head will come up last. And soften here through the shoulders. Keep lifting through the front of the lumbar spine. Let your glutes relax. You can alternately shake out your thighs for a moment, just allowing the body to release a little bit more. Inhale, float your arms up. Bring your palms together. On your exhale, invite your hands to the heart. Check in with your intention. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. One more breath there. Inhale. Exhale. Release your hands. Inhale. Float the arms up. Roll through the shoulders. As you exhale, let your hips come back, coming into chair pose, Barakanasana. And you can bring your hands to the heart for now. So chairs classically taught toe mounts together, heels slightly apart. Your feet should be about a fist distance apart for chair pose. So that whole idea of the toe mounts together and heels apart, that's good for certain things, but it's not necessarily the best things for your hips or your knees. So we want the knees to be aligned with our ankles and our hips there. Pulling those hips back, you should be able to see the tops of the feet. Grab your toes into the mat. So observe where the weight is in your feet right now. If you are dropping back into your heels a lot, you're going to feel your glutes engage a little bit more. If you're overly leaning forward, like if you were skiing downhill, then you're going to notice that you're loading through the front of the thighs and the lower aspects of the quads a lot there. So we want evenness. And then see if you can actively engage through those 3 points of the feet here. Feel for your inner body lifting. Bring your hands just resting on the sacrum or the low back there. You can bring the backs of the hands there. Allow those shoulders to sort of extend open, feeling that quality of lift through the heart just slightly. Go ahead and come down just a little bit deeper, bend slightly, and then float up. So maybe about 3 inches total range of motion, not a lot. Go ahead and take it down slightly. Come on up, and we'll do 3 more of those. Take it down and up, feeling that fire, feeling that evenness in the feet, down, up, and 1 more, down, up, all the way back up to standing. Shake it out. Allow those thighs to relax. Float the arms up, the heart up, palms together. Inhale. Exhale, allow your hands to come down, melting into that fold. Walk your hands all the way out to a high plank. Bring your hands mat width distance apart here. Your hands are slightly in front of your shoulder joint. So if you want, you can even step back a little bit. It's slightly different than a classic plank alignment. There's an intentional reason behind that. Go ahead and let your knees come down. Bring your feet up, feel for lifting up through the inner body. Elbows will then start to lower just a little bit and then take it up. Lower it down, press your feet firmly together about halfway. Press up, and we'll do that 3 more times. Down and up. Look forward, down and up. And 1 more time, down and up. Go ahead and allow your hips to come back. Tuck your toes, lift your hips, find down dog. Keep those hands wide. Inhale. Exhale. Observe your toes and your knees. Inhale. Exhale. 1 more breath like that. Inhale. Exhale. Step your feet wide so your feet can come out with distance or even a little bit farther if you would like. And then invite your left hand to reach over toward your right low leg, finding a down dog twist, ducking underneath that right armpit, drawing that right armpit in. Relaxing through your face, feeling that right side of the body illuminate, and then switch. Left hand comes back to the mat, right hand reaches under and across. Inhale. Exhale. Place both hands on the mat. Walk your hands to kind of the midpoint of the mat. So now you're in this very awkward, short and broad down dog. Relax through the shoulders, relax through the neck there. Allow your heels to come in a little bit. Turn your toes out slightly. Bend your knees, pull your hips back. Your hands will get really light. And without coming up quite yet, you'll kind of press your finger pads firmly into the mat. So your hands might have started to lift. Imagine that you're kind of grab through your mat with your finger pads there. Activate your shoulders. Inhale.
As you exhale, now start to let your hands come back, let your upper body lift. Knees are bent. You're in a wide squat here, mat width distance, toes turned out. So alignment of the feet has a lot to do with what is firing in a squat. So any squatting posture is always going to work your quads. If your toes are turned out, it's going to get your glutes a little bit more. So depending upon your objective, if you want to utilize a little bit less of your glutes, then your toes will turn forward. If you want to use a little bit more of them, then your toes will turn out. The important thing is that your knees and your feet point the same place. So if you are dropping into your knees and your feet are turned out, you've defeated the purpose. So just notice that your feet and your knees point the same place. And then from there, you can bring your hands to your heart, lift up through your low belly. Go ahead and come down about 4 inches and hold that space there. Relax through the shoulders. Look forward. Inhale. Exhale. Go ahead and float up those 4 inches. Now here we'll add in Mulabanda. So squeeze, hug, lift. Feel that quality of engaging through Mulabanda. Come down those 4 inches and soften and rise. Squeeze and lower. Soften and rise. Squeeze and lower. Soften and rise. Squeeze and lower. Soften and rise. 3 more times. Squeeze and lower. Soften and rise. Squeeze and lower. Soften and rise. And it should be a little confusing for your body. 1 more time. Squeeze and lower. Soften and rise. Here, hold. Squeeze pelvic floor. And soften. Squeeze. Soften. Squeeze. Soften. Keep pressing those feet to the mat. Squeeze. Soften. Squeeze. Soften. And 2 more. Squeeze. Soften. Squeeze. Soften. Release. Come up. Shake it out. Let everything go. So when we shake it out, it's important to feel that shake, that jiggle. Really letting the tissue relax with this. So it's not just about letting go of the grabbing. It's letting the tissue move. You want your thighs to jiggle. You want your glutes to jiggle. You want to feel your belly relax for a moment. It's nice to let go and allow the connective tissue to unload. So the shake's really, really essential with that. And from there, go ahead and find that forward fold. Allow your neck to relax. Allow your head to be heavy. Bring your heels in a little bit more and then bend into the knees. Come down for Malasana or Garland. Grab 1 block. Place the block underneath your hip, so almost like a little seat. And you can sit on it a little bit there if you'd like. This should be sort of half support and half challenge for you. So you're not just going to put all your weight into it, but you're also not going to not be touching it. So it's sort of a point of reference there. You're pressing into your feet. Block is underneath the hips, underneath the pelvis, and then you'll start to imagine lifting the pelvic floor up away from that block and softening and letting it rest on the block and feeling that lift and hug and soften. And 2 more. Squeeze, lift, soften. 1 more. Squeeze, lift, soften, and take that block out. Bring your hands onto the mat. Allow your knees to come down. Bring your feet closer to each other, and then let your hips rest back for that supported hero's pose here. Relax through your shoulders. Check back in. Take a breath. Inhale. And close your eyes if you'd like. Exhale. 3 more breaths like that. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Center yourself on the mat. So if you are back toward the back edge, I want you to come forward a little. And then from here, we're going to work our way toward a reclined posture with the blocks. So this may or may not be accessible. It's an idea. There are ways to modify this, but the goal is going to be coming into like a stairway to heaven with the legs in this hero's pose posture. That may or may not work. It may just be that you recline a little bit. So I'll have you start off by placing your blocks, a short block and a tall block, and you can come out of that hero's pose if you need to get the blocks in the right spot. And then start to work your way back. So you bring your hands back. Maybe your forearms come down. Maybe they don't. Resting the bottom of the ribs, well, a little higher than the bottom of the ribs on that short block.
And then resting the back of the skull on that tall block. And it's okay if your knees float up with this. So we're taking some time here to let the body accept the pose, and it may be too much, in which case you'll use your arms to create support. So you can use your forearms on the mat. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. We'll stay here for about 6 more breaths. So if you're feeling like, oh my gosh, this is too intense, that's okay. We're not going to be here for super long. Inhale, exhale. See if you can lengthen through your low back just a little bit more, sending that tailbone forward, and then relaxing your glutes. Inhale, exhale, and one more breath there. Inhale, exhale, and then we'll gently rise and come up off of those blocks. We can revisit that stairway to heaven element later on without that flex in the knee joint, but just experimenting with that there for a moment. Bring your blocks to either side of your thighs. So you want to have blocks just supportively there. You can place your hands on them. Extend your spine, inhale. As you exhale, round your spine, allow your knees to come up, opening up through the front of the ankles. So you're going to be pressing the tops of the feet there, releasing the shins to the mat. Inhale, extend. Exhale to round, floating those knees up. And 3 more times. Inhale, your hands can be light here, elbows heavy. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. And again, inhale. Exhale. And softly release. I'm going to move into, I'm going to be totally honest with you, one of my least favorite postures. So that's okay. Go ahead and place those blocks aside. So with this next piece, if you need to add cushion underneath your knees, please feel welcome to do that, either with a folded blanket or a towel. But we'll come into, you can also turn on your mat and create the cushion or the extra with your mat folded over. So either way, we're going to come into frog pose. So you're bringing your knees out wide, and then your feet come out as well. Your hips lower down as much as they can, and then your upper body will come down toward the earth as well. So you can come down to your forearms. Everyone's ability to move their hips this way is so different. So you'll see some people will have their hips all the way down on the mat. I have pretty mobile hips, but my skeleton, my bones are not aligned in a way that permits that. But you should feel a pretty intense mobilizing or stretch in your inner thighs here. If you feel discomfort, just check in and observe the quality of that discomfort. So if it starts to feel like you're getting this compression or pinching in your joints, you need to shift your hips back or forward to navigate around that. So just kind of playing with it. And we'll spend some time here. It's one of the reasons that I don't like this pose very much, but there are therapeutic qualities that are really great about it. So it is something that you want to just sort of tease apart and shift forward and back with and create that opening in that space there. So over time, melting into this, noticing that you're not letting your shoulders hunch up into your ears. A lot of this work requires the upper body. So we want to make sure that we're taking good care of that and not being destructive in our neck and shoulders. And you'll notice too, when you start to spend more time in these long holds, that things change and you kind of encounter some of that shaking again. That's not necessarily a bad thing at all, but just breathing with that and allowing those hips to get even heavier toward the mat. Notice if you're active in your feet. So allow your toes to relax. And then notice if you're active in your knees. Notice if you're active in your inner thighs. See if that maybe gives you a little bit more of a release there. If you can start to let go through those places. Maybe your chest comes a millimeter closer to the mat or toward the floor. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Stay here for about 3 more breaths. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. And 1 more breath like that. Inhale. Exhale. Slowly rise any way you need to come out of that. I know it's not the easiest posture to exit, so just kind of gently working your way up and out. Any little counter movements that you need.
we have about 15 minutes left here. We're going to move into a movement that I've been really into recently, and this is more from classic bar alignment. So if you want to, go ahead after you've done your little counter movements, you'll find yourself as if you're about to come into like a pigeon pose. So let's start off with the left knee as our forward knee, and that left foot's going to come over toward the right side a little bit, but we will not attempt to bring that left shin parallel with the top of the mat at all. And then your right knee will bend and your hips can just roll over to the left for a moment. So it's kind of like deer pose if we were setting up for a yin practice. But coming over to that left side is your support. Your right side is already kind of just sort of there. It's not really weight bearing at all. Your hands will come into a supportive place here, framing that left knee. Now you can use your blocks if you'd like. You can tent your fingers. So having the blocks is going to be nice because it just takes some of the forward lean out of this, and we'll see why in a moment that you might need a little extra support there. So I'll just invite you to try that and then take a moment, see if you need to shift that right knee forward a little bit more. If the right knee is closer to the left foot, it's going to be a little bit of a break for that right hip. So if you're feeling like you're getting any pinching or over grabbing, or things are getting a little gnarly in that right hip, then you can always ease up on that by bringing that knee a little bit further forward. So we'll activate this. Make sure that that left outer thigh is pressing firm, that left foot is active, the inner body is lifting, your hands will press into those blocks or into the floor. And then that right thigh is going to start to lift up away from the mat. So the outside of the right thigh will start to float up. Maybe the foot floats up. Maybe that's asking way too much, and you can just keep the foot on the mat and actively lift the outside of the thigh. You'll start to feel your right glutes engage a lot with this. That's our target kind of area for this movement. So from here, push that right foot back slightly, like half an inch. Maybe it's still on the mat, but it's the activation of that backward squeeze. You're going to feel that right hip engage even more, and then ease up on that. Squeeze it back and soften, back and soften. Keep lifting the low belly, back, soften, back, soften, squeeze it back, soften, squeeze, soften, 3 more, squeeze, soften, squeeze, soften, 1 more, squeeze, soften, and release. Now we'll find that yin posture, that deer pose. You can place your blocks aside or use them under your forearms. You're folding over your left shin here. So you kind of move those blocks a little over to the right. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, and 1 more time. Inhale, exhale, gently rise. Place your blocks behind you if you would like. So we're going to set up to recline this a little bit. Walking those back, bringing the forearms down to the blocks or to the floor if you can access that. And now we're opening through the front of that right hip and thigh there quite a bit. Inhale, keeping those shoulders open. Exhale, letting the low belly relax. Inhale, exhale. 1 more breath there. Inhale, exhale, softly rise. So we'll switch sides. You are welcome to spin around on your mat, getting set up for the other side, or you can windshield wiper your way toward the back of the mat, and you'll find that you're already set up for the most part. So that left leg is back. Right foot is across the top edge of your mat, over toward that left side, framing that right knee with your blocks there. Putting that weight and support into the outside of the right thigh. You want to press firm all the way down to the outside of the right foot, and we'll start to float up through that left outer thigh there. So we have activation in both outer thighs. Keep drawing in through the low belly. You'll press that left foot back and soften, squeeze, and soften, squeeze, soften, squeeze, soften, squeeze, soften, 3 more, squeeze, soften, squeeze, soften, and 1 more, squeeze, soften, release. Move your blocks over to the outside of your right shin, and then go ahead and fold. You don't necessarily need your blocks too. It's just they were there, so it's nice to use them. Inhale, exhale. 1 more breath there. Inhale, exhale, and then come on up. Place your blocks behind you. And go ahead and recline a little bit there. So you're going to feel that
Stretch through the front of your left thigh, left hip flexors. You're actually opening up a little bit through left psoas as well. Just breathing. Inhale. Exhale, one more breath there. Inhale. Exhale, softly exit. Come up. Go ahead and place your blocks at the back of your mat. So situating yourself to set up for that Stairway to Heaven pose. You want a tall block and a short block. Now, if you're feeling like you can get a little bit deeper in this pose, you can make that block that is supporting underneath the back of the skull the same height as your shorter block, but it's not necessary. It's just something to consider if you're feeling like you can really ease into it. So you'll recline onto your short block, and it's across the mid back, kind of where the bra strap would be, or along the bottom edge of your shoulder blades. And then your head will rest on that tall block or that other block if you're not making it higher. Here, bring your feet together and then allow them to find a place where you can rest without as much effort in your thighs or your hips. And if you feel discomfort, you are adjusting where your feet are. So they might scoot forward a little bit more. And then allowing for the lower back to drop toward the earth. You can bring your palms facing up, hands are down, closer to the hips, but not necessarily on the mat. Lower back is soft. Hips are heavy. Eyes are closed. Inhale. Exhale. And we'll breathe here for about 4 more breaths. Inhale. Exhale. And then following that 4th breath, any little movements that you need. So if you want to extend your legs out or change something, please feel welcomed. And then we'll utilize this pose as part of our Shavasana. So we're going to stay here. So adjust it in whatever capacity you would like. Maybe that means that you're no longer in that Barakanasana expression. Just finding that quality that's going to be restful for the closing part of practice. And just allowing the body to take this time to let go, really allowing the lower back to become heavy, allowing the muscles around your eyes to relax, inviting your jaw to soften. We'll breathe here for a little bit of time. My voice will guide you when it is time to rise. So just allowing the body to be passive for now, no agenda. Let your throat relax. Let your arms be heavy. Keep breathing here. So after a period of time in that Stairway to Heaven pose, you'll notice that there's areas that you thought you were releasing or you thought you were letting go that are still quite active. See if you can kind of sleuth some of those out and notice what is just really not wanting to let go, and what is that about? Is it an armored guarding? Like, is it just in case you fall? Is it just a pattern that you're not aware of, or that maybe you're building awareness around now? And just observe if you can start to let that area get a little bit less active or a little bit less engaged in this posture. This is all about letting go. So we'll continue to breathe here, feeling that ease, that weightedness. Imagine your lower back becoming liquid and allowing the lumbar spine to kind of pour down from that block support. Inhale. Exhale, get a little bit softer through the belly, a little bit softer through the hips. Stay here for about 9 more breaths.
Just allowing the breath to gently rise and fall. Keep breathing. Inhale, exhale. When you're ready, invite movement back into the body. If it feels accessible, you can take a long stretch with the blocks supporting. That may or may not work for you. And then when you're ready, you'll gently rise up from your blocks and find a seat that is comfortable for you. Maybe it is that supported hero's pose that we worked with. Maybe you're sitting on your blocks, just finding something that speaks to you. And then once you've found that seat, take a moment and just observe the transformation that you've created and allow this observation to continue beyond practice. Just noting the shifts, the subtleties that have changed, the awareness, the energy, and then invite your hands to the heart. Take a moment there connecting with a quality of gratitude toward yourself for practicing, and then extending and sharing that gratitude with that which sustains you. Invite your thumbs to rise from heart center to wisdom center. The divine light in me honors and sees the divine light in you. Namaste. Thank you so much. Have a beautiful day. If you have questions, please feel welcome to ask, and I will be happy to answer.